This is the end of the Skywalker saga. And it's not just the end of one movie or 3 movies, it's the end of 9 movies. And the challenge of this movie has been making sure that this feels as big as it is, that it is as intimate and emotional and moving as it can possibly be, almost despite the scope and scale.
Lando, you did it! You did it!
I mean, it's Star Wars, so there's always some fantastic space battle.
Yeah.
The fundamental aesthetics of Star Wars are baked into what George created back in the 70s.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
The rebellion is organic, it's humanist, it's people. It's used, it's got rust, it's got dust. It's full of the life in this galaxy. You would do anything for those characters.
That's it! Right!
Like Han Solo or Chewie or Princess Leia. The Falcon is, you know, it's a real character in these movies.
What a piece of junk.
She may not look like much, but she's got it where it counts.
We always look back to the original trilogy. You know, those guys got it right.
Punch it!
The way it moves, what it can do, and just how heroic it is.
Turn her around! I'm gonna put all power in the French shield!
You're gonna attack them?
We wanted everyone to fall in love again with Millennium Falcon. How fast it is, how agile it is, even though it's actually quite a big ship. It's the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy, and we wanted to show that.
My first day on set was in the Millennium Falcon. There was just an energy to it. JJ just screaming all sorts of stuff at me to do this and do that.
Lightspeed! 3, 2, 1! Oh! I know!
We're starting off with the Falcon chasing the movie. It flies to this ice planet with these tunnels inside it, and it's not just a flat plane, it's a 3D grid of tunnels. So the Falcon could fly through a tunnel and then go up and then round upside down the other way, which just makes it a lot more fun.
Poe, he's like, I can fly anything, but the Millennium Falcon is a very specific hunk of junk. It's a complex piece of machinery, it's very old, and it is very fast.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I know! It's very chaotic in the Millennium Falcon cockpit, and things are cracking, and the whole ship seems to be falling apart. How thick do you think that ice wall is?
So one of the moves that Poe pulls is what we call light speed skipping. He can just blip the light speed, so we go into light speed and come out again. He's trying to evade the TIE fighters chasing him, so they end up crashing into huge spikes or end up in a city that's upside down. Or in the end, there's this huge fog monster that comes up through the clouds.
The fog monster is a huge monster. This is a Millennium Falcon, so you see the size of the arm. The length of the arm is 1,400 feet. Our challenge was to feel nice fine detail all over the skin surfaces. Veins, pores, wrinkles, and also we introduced some interesting patterns of the skin from Jabba the Hutt. It's very unique style. It's definitely a nice addition to the Star Wars monster universe.
Han was all over sort of, don't get a scratch on my precious ship, but this thing gets beaten up, that's for sure.
I need a fire crew here! I need another one at the back! Go! Go! It's on fire!
So this is the main resistance base. This is the Falcon landing area. We have Poe's X-Wing. This is a full 100% X-Wing, completely built, kitted out, lights on the inside.
Well, these ships, they're so out of date. But, we do what we can with the ship. Because I'm Joe Domingo, and I can fix anything.
In A, Joe Domingo was Poe Dameron's squire, where he would, take his helmet from him when he landed, and his gloves, and then he'd give them to him when he took off. And the idea was that he was going to explode in the huge explosion, but he didn't. So he's back now.
I gotta replace the whole panel.
Well, then replace the whole panel.
It's gonna be this piece alone is like 75 spacecrafts.
Well, we don't got that.
I know. So what am I supposed to do?
You're gonna have to figure it out, Joe. That's why you're the best.
I got junk tools.
That's why I got you on my X-Wing.
Domingo lives forever.
So this is the first full-size Y-Wing that's been made in Star Wars since 1976 for Star Wars. This is an update to that version, which was obviously a Colin Cantwell model, Joe Johnston design. I wanted to go back to the inspiration of the Ralph McQuarrie more rocket ship feeling ones that he did, that was part Colin Cantwell and part Ralph. And so, again, it's more retro, it's sleeker, it's more rounded off. New nacelle, it's much longer. It's fully dressed and working in there, so that head will come off for the VFX shots, so we can shoot the pilot in there on a gimbal moving.
How many times have we watched those movies where you're watching some big battle and you're watching them touch all the buttons and doing all the things and shooting? And it was so fun to actually get to be in one of those scenes. I wanted everyone I knew to like be watching, going, okay, I'm doing this. I'm in the spaceship right now. Okay.
Because we can't afford to build all these ships full size, what we have done is we have added what they did in episode 4. They only built, I think, 1 or 2 X-wings and a half a Y-wing, and all the rest of the ships were literally card cutouts, where they literally are paintings on flats. And so we've added a B-wing, which is essentially a scenic painting, but when you come back far enough, it looks like a full-size ship. So as long as we're always looking this way, no one's ever gonna know.
As the End of 8 left the Resistance, you know, in kind of pieces, they've set up camp quickly with what they've been able to resource and access.
And so the challenge for the designers and for JJ was to create an environment that has the extreme circumstances of Episode 9, but also has a bit of the soul of Star Wars in it.
We needed some kind of focal point or centerpiece to our Resistance base that would make it a place that had an important role in the story. And the production designer, Kevin Jenkins, came up with the idea of using the blockade runner.
The blockade runner is the first ship that you ever see in Star Wars, a ship that is running from the Imperial Star Destroyer.
The beginning of that research process was to look back at the original film, was to look at photographs of the original ILM model. We tried to be as authentic as we could and to pull all the strands together. So it was finding the right level of detail that still felt like a model kit, that still made it feel like the original enough and have the fun of the original, but look good at that full scale.
It's gonna be incredible.
I do remember vividly JJ saying it'd be so cool to be able to have a meeting like under a ship, and that tactile feeling of touching the ship, and that feeling it brings you back to from the original movies of like Luke and Han walking underneath it and tapping the wing, or whatever, you know, so it feels very lived in and very, very believable.
I have to admit, I think that may be one of the biggest spaceships ever built for a movie.
The reason it looks real is because it's part of our concept for the look of the film, that they look real and not futuristic. The galaxy that we created in Star Wars and are continuing with Empire is one of real mechanical apparatus that functions, and it should appear to work in the context that we know it as an audience.
The blockade runner is significantly larger than even our largest stage. So what we did was build the first half of the ship, and then to give the illusion that there was more of it, we made a cutout that was then scenic painted to look like the rest of the ship going back in perspective.
3 days ago, when that was just a flat piece of wood in the back part that's forced perspective, everybody said, well, I don't think that's going to work, take it down. And now you look at it, and I mean, I can't even tell the difference, really.
It's added 120 feet over 6 inches.
And just look how abstract that looks. And then when you get back and you look at it, it's like, it looks just like a real thing in space. It's fantastic. Just with light and dark, just 4 tones in there. It's a lost art. A lost art.
Just the engineering inside of these ships, you know, it's just crazy. Especially when you talk about these ships being built largely from wood. I was just blown away by the scope, the scale, the size, the magnitude, and all the craftsmen, the people who worked on this.
We basically got background experts, sort of rope access experts on the ship. So my job here is kind of placing them, putting the lines in, and then occasionally they've got me doing a little bit of abseiling for the camera.
The structure of the ship itself is basically steel and scaffolding covered with plywood and fiberglass, and then painted to look old and aged.
Putting the age on the ship. So, yeah, using horrible things that smell a lot. About 3 weeks. Just all over it, the machinery getting up there, the high bits, the low bits.
He's done all this fine work. He is the star of the show.
Just embarrassed me massively now.
We're making a smaller size cockpit in there, so we can get actors in there.
So what I would love you to do is start here, kind of move across. You can be playing some of the switches.
Got it.
Magical.
I feel like I'm still asleep, like I'm dreaming. It's crazy when you walk in here. It's another planet, another world. It's It's a big kiss toy, basically. That's how I feel.
Pretty much.
It's just the greatest thing in the world. It's like they've built a Disneyland for me that you share only with a few hundred people.
The might of the final order will soon be ready.
We had this crazy idea for the end sequence. This whole thing with the Star Destroyers. There were a million questions about design, what it would look like.
We started with a Star Destroyer asset, which was built for Rogue One. So this is the original Rogue One Star Destroyer, and then we put massive plasma gun here. The number of the parts we used for only this area, it's about half size of the entire ship.
These Star Destroyers literally emerge from the ground, almost like the dead emerging from a cemetery.
We pictured it being outside in the sunlight. What JJ was kind of more preferring was something that would be a little bit darker, a little bit more evil. So we changed the palette some more grays and blues, punctuating that with moments of lightning.
The big challenge was trying to come up with something that gives the scale of the shot, really kind of like capturing that feeling that the Empire has just created something that's insurmountable and evil.
Send a ship to a world they know. Let it burn. The final order begins.
Currently, we have the pyrotechnicians and the model makers loading the planet with explosives so that we can blow it to smithereens.
This stage is where George moved after the first movie and, produced The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And a lot of the visual effects were shot on this stage.
We used to be model makers at Industrial Light and Magic before this, so this is a full circle. ILM and the model makers coming together once again.
That's the bright flashes that poke through. And then these are all fire mortars here. And they start we let them cook for 1/10 of a second, which is like huge in the shot.
A little bit of an homage to the sort of Star Wars world and the way that they would have flown it up. It's got that fantastic organic quality of just being a little beyond your total control. So it's a half planet. We've done a bunch of tests. The sleeve, the black sleeve that's there, that's actually there. So that as the pyro explodes, because it's only a half sphere, that anything that kind of goes in the wrong direction will get sent back upwards, and so it won't be seen on camera.
We're shooting it up to lose the gravity, so that thing will explode and come down.
Roger Guyette came to us. He wanted to see something in a planet explosion that hadn't been seen before. He wanted it real, where the planet heats up from the inside and blows itself apart.
And don't look away, because that thing is going to go in, how long, Jeff? 8,000 or 800?
About 12/100ths, yeah.
12/100ths of a second. It will explode.
Kajimi. How?
A blast from a Star Destroyer. A ship from the new Sith fleet, out of the unknowns.
The Emperor sent a ship from Exegol. Does that mean every ship in the fleet
has planet-killing weapons? Of course they do. All of them. This is how he finishes it.
After Kajimi, we're gonna do everything that we can to buy time
and hope that someone's going to show up to fight back against the First Order. Because that's all that we can do.
I know it's a rough ride. Stay locked on race course.
There's this world the ships have to fly through to get to Exegol. JJ described it as a red space, almost like the inside of the capillaries of the human body. And we thought, well, where do we start? And we started in my garage with condensed milk, with sugar packs, with different salinities of salt, and with chicken pieces. And we threw it all in there, put a little miniature TIE fighter in there, and it was pretty amazing what we were able to get out of it. And then after that, it was able to go to ILM, and they made this amazing world out of it.
For this environment, FX has to simulate a lot of fluid, a lot of viscous things that has to be integrated with a bunch of like muscle tissue parts, tendrils, bones. It's gross, it's gooey and everything else, but it looks awesome.
The small band of Ripple pilots are showing up on Exegol for the first time. You know, and they don't really know what to expect.
Look at that fleet.
So immediately just boom, 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 they start firing.
Damn it!
Just get this view of the whole armada. Kind of wanted to create this moment where you got a sense that they're up against these ridiculous odds. I mean, like, there's just no way they're going to win this one.
Welcome to Exegol!
You can't have the world be overwhelming and so much that you lose the scope of the shots. And it started with the art department coming up with looks, and then we would start to realize that look. A lot of it comes down to composition and clarity. How much detail, how bright is everything, how much atmosphere is there? You know, these are all really important things that allow you to compose a shot and be able to see what's happening.
It just becomes utter chaos at that moment, and that was, you know, a JJ plan where he wanted this thing to sound like and look like real war. There's all the classic Star Wars ships that we were using classic sounds. We also have some nouveau versions of those sounds. Like the TIE fighters, for example, the root sound, the signature sound of the TIE fighter is elephant scream. And that's what gives it that sort of roar as it goes by. It's a Ben Burt special. That's one of my favorite all-time Star Wars sounds. So I wanted to make some new ones with that recipe, just use similar but different ingredients, creating new TIE fighter buys for the Sith fighters. It's a little nastier, it's a little shriekier.
JJ had this idea that they would do a ground assault. It was kind of like a First World War attack, where they'd be riding on these oarback creatures that we basically created for the movie, but we have horse stand-ins. So we built this deck of a Star Destroyer in Cardington in this immense hangar that they had there. And then we staged all these scenes on it as though the thing was floating above the planet's surface.
Hi guys, we're currently here doing the biggest cavalry I've ever seen in Star Wars history.
Yeah. We're riding horses across this giant space.
We have a place to get to. We can't reveal where that is. We're armed.
Hot water bottles and a blanket.
And I'm armed with self-respect. Yeah, sure. Not nervous. All the stunts have been challenging in different ways. Horse riding, you are charging through explosions. A lot of jumping. Running through explosions, being dragged through explosions. Now, just here to wish Naomi best of luck. Best of luck, love.
Thanks, darling. I'll see you on the other side.
It's been a lot, and you don't realize that until you get home in your bed, and then you feel all the pain. Such a drag.
Ready, set, and 3, 2, 1, action!
Like, I don't even know what I felt that. Yes, I felt it. Woo! Let's go again.
The success of the shots is about making it feel like one huge event. So it's taking that work and sort of blending it into the digital world that we've been creating for that particular moment in the movie.
Still no Falcon or backup.
Their numbers have dwindled. They have almost nowhere left to go. And so they're really sort of in extremis.
This is the end. This is the very end.
I'm sorry.
He doesn't know what to do. He feels completely lost.
There's just too many of them.
But there are more of us, Poe. There are more of us.
That moment where they all arrive, Poe looks up and he sees this immense fleet. Kind of reminded me of that sort of Dunkirk idea that everyone in the galaxy comes together to try and take down the First Order and the Sith.
The blockade runner will be there and X-Wings, but along with that, we've thrown in just about any ship we could find. We've got the Naboo Starfighter from the Phantom Menace. We've got the Ghost from Rebels, the Star Tours ship, Medical Frigate from Empire Strikes Back, the U-Wing from Rogue One, the Resistance Bomber from Last Jedi. This ship is a Mandalorian ship that goes all the way back to the Clone Wars episodes. 3 of the aces from Star Wars Resistance. You might notice a quad jumper from Force Awakens. Very similar to the approach that we took with the X-Wing, where we looked at early McQuarrie drawings. We designed a new B-Wing. It's kind of slicker, a little thinner, lighter, but taking inspiration from Joe Johnston. He designed a lot of great early B-Wing designs that eventually made it to what you see in Return of the Jedi. We've also upgraded the Y-Wing, the A-Wing. So initially we thought our library was going to be big enough to include all these ships that we were going to need. But we soon realized when JJ said thousands of ships, we needed to go back to the drawing board and design a lot of ships, about 55 new ships that we had never seen before. Just going through the alphabet, we didn't have a D-Wing, so Steven Zavala designed us a D-Wing. One of the things that we attempted towards the end was taking single ships that we had a library of, like the Mon Calamari, and making more variations of those. So we added wings to them, a dorsal fin, anything to give these ships a unique silhouette. These ships have come from all over the galaxy. They have their own unique signature, so we want to give those silhouettes a really quick read.
Finn, you seeing this?
Finn didn't board the lander.
They're still on that command ship?
So we have a sequence at the end of the movie where Poe is going down to rescue our heroes, Finn and Janna, off the Star Destroyer. And we wanted to bring Lando back into it, you know, because the Falcon is his ship originally.
I'm going to get him!
So we bring the Falcon in over the top of Poe.
Trust me, I'm fast!
Not as fast as this ship.
And he does a great move.
Hold on, Chewie!
And he dives down to rescue our heroes from the Star Destroyer, and that was a really good, fun thing to do.
It's a heroic moment, which I was very happy about. Lando did not succeed bringing down the dark side. So this was his moment to do it.
It's just jaw-dropping when you see the level of detail. The sheer scale and size is absolutely amazing.
JJ wanted thousands of Star Destroyers falling from the sky, which of course made everybody extremely nervous. But that's what you basically see for the end, with all these ships falling from the sky.
Ultimately, when the Resistance gets the upper hand and they realize that they can start taking out these guns, the Sith Star Destroyers just start falling out of the sky, and we see large chunks of burning wreckage.
We put very small details into each chunk, you know, living spaces and then pill-shaped lights, machine rooms, and also famous tractor beam controller. Yeah.
The work that we've achieved, at least on this film, was possible because of work that people like Masa and other folks had done on previous shows, because now we have a large library of data and of Star Wars designed elements from over the years that we've been able to move around and then quickly populate the scenes with.
Look at this.
Episode 9 has some great moments. Whether it's the X-Wing being lifted out of the water, or the Millennium Falcon dodging around in ice tunnels. In terms of the visual effects, we probably have over 1,000 artists working on the show one way or another. And great production support. It really takes an army to do these kinds of projects. And of course, at the end of the day, it's the way that you're collaborating which makes the end result better. You've worked on these sequences and you hope you're doing something exciting or different or new, and then you show it to an audience and you just see their reaction. They're just fantastic. It's incredibly fulfilling. And that's really the big moment for me.
ILM is the house that Star Wars built. ILM has, and Star Wars really did, change the way you saw what was possible in terms of visual effects. Bringing to life these worlds and these planets and these ships. Every time they do a project, they solve a new problem and they keep getting better. Often they do such a great job that what they're doing is invisible, that you don't realize that set is extended. You don't realize that that thing wasn't there or that that puppeteer was removed. So I'm grateful for the chance to get to work with them in this final battle.
We did it! We did it!